I'd like to call this meeting of Tuesday, November the 14th to order. The first item of discussion is to adopt the agenda. Recommendation is Council adopts the November 14, 2017 regular meeting agenda as presented. Mover, please. Councillor Thompson, Councillor Butler. All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Moving on to the minutes section. Council adopt the October 30th, 2017 public hearing meeting minutes as presented. Have a mover, please. Councillor Butler. Seconder. Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Okay, moving on to item 6A. Written reports of council. The recommendation is... Sorry?
We did the public hearing. 3B.
Oh, 3B, sorry, recommendation. Okay. Recommendation council adopts the October 30th, 2017 regular meeting minutes as presented. Mover, please. Councillor Thompson. Seconder. Councillor Hammond. Councillor Ross, go ahead.
I'd just like to make a note. You don't have to put this in the minutes, but I didn't hang up. I got cut off.
Alrighty. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Now moving on to 6A. The recommendation is that we receive all the reports of council submitted to November 14th, 2017 regular meeting be received. Councillor Ross. Councillor Butler. Councillor Tripp. Councillor Butler. Discussion.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, I just wanted to comment briefly on my report. I had mentioned in my report that I was going to bring forward a request for a town hall meeting. And the reason for that was that a week ago Friday, I had attended a community meeting at the Gospel Chapel where close to 65 residents were there, and I wrote up in my report fairly comprehensively what all that meeting entailed. And then since then, I have received a number of emails and requests from people in the community who really felt that a town hall meeting for those people who had been experiencing sort of the criminal side of the issue that's been going on, and some other, maybe some threatening interactions and those kinds of things. We're seeking some information that community meeting really was not prepared to address, nor was that even their intent. So I bounced emails back and forth to members of council. Didn't really hear a lot back, but in the final analysis, after meeting with some other people in the community, there was a recommendation for Gary Smith from the Phoenix Foundation to step up to the plate and perhaps put that kind of a town hall meeting together. I haven't had a chance to get any input from Councillor Thompson. I don't see Mr. Smith here tonight, and I don't know whether or not those steps that people in the community had been making, in addition to myself, to just make these connections, have been talked about or discussed at any other level of council. But I am bringing it forward to council now because I do believe that there is definitely a lot of community interest in some sort of an information sharing meeting, call it a town hall meeting, call it something else, but that someone in the community really needs to, and I'll use that language because I really feel that that's appropriate, and I feel that members of the community would also agree with me. Somebody needs to step up to the plate and put this kind of a meeting together so that people in the community can be informed. Information is knowledge, information is power, information helps us understand one another, and I really do believe that a meeting of this sort should be organized at the soonest possible convenience. The other thing I'd like to say is that I had at the request of MLA Linda Larson, I had agreed to meet with her because she actually contacted me and asked me about following through on one of the conversations that happened down at the UBCM. I had intimated that there may be a volunteer organization in the community that could possibly be interested in looking at getting together something like a treatment center, which is very different from recovery or interim housing or any of those kinds of things. I've had some conversations with some people in the community who were willing to attend that meeting with Linda Larson, and then late last night I found out that that meeting had been canceled. I believe that that was at the mayor's behest. So I don't know where we're at with that. I don't know whether or not Linda Larson will be coming back to the community or to the city or to the mayor to see whether those conversations can be picked up again. But my desire in this area is to see movement in the community forward toward all of the things that I think that we're, well, I'm hoping that we're most interested in. That is helping the disadvantaged and the marginalized, the homeless, those people in the community that are needing services. If we can get those services in any way possible from the government, then I think that as we collaborate and work together and talk with each other, we can find the various avenues forward to try and tap into the resources that may be available for us. Thank you.
Would you like to
Councillor
respond
Butler.
to something in Councillor Tripp's comment, if I might?
No, go ahead.
Yes, with respect to the Phoenix Foundation and Gary Smith, I was somewhat surprised that you would not have talked to me first as the city's liaison to the foundation. However, having said that, I think that would have been probably be a more appropriate way to approach it. The item is going to be on our agenda. We have a meeting tomorrow, and that will have to be a decision of the board and not just the chair. So if you have issues that you want brought forward to the foundation, I would really appreciate it if you would liaise through me so I could liaise with the board.
Councillor Butler, then Councillor Hammond.
Yeah, so I didn't remember who made that recommendation that Gary do the meeting. I just saw the emails going back and forth, but I also just wanted to comment. I was really excited about your meeting with Linda today. I think when you were working as a chaplain, you'd done a thesis paper on treatment centers for drug addiction, so I was excited that you had a nonprofit and a provincial representative. Why would you want to cancel? Did you cancel that meeting, Mr. Mayor? I'm just curious why you would want that to take place.
If it concerns city business, it represents all of council as a whole, for one. Comment on that. Secondly, after speaking to MLA Larson, she was made aware of the fact that we were proposing a task force, and at that point in time, she elected to step down because of the fact that the task force, once that is all arranged and organized, there will be a time for that discussion in those meetings with MLA Larson. She was not aware of that, and emails had gone back and forth today with myself and MLA Larson and Director Russell, and everything right now is being handled properly. There's no need for an independent councillor to be talking to another elected official on the provincial level when this comprises and all of council should be involved, because it is city business. When certain institutions are mentioned in the email, that's not a good avenue to take, because those institutions, as were referred to by Councillor Tripp in a report, there's already been discussions of interests by third party, and this is why it becomes a city business issue. And again, according to our policy, we do not have one spokesperson for the city, at least not at this point in time. And I'm not here to debate this matter. Councillor Hammond.
Yeah, I think this request is duplicating what's already going on in the community. We do have groups that are already doing this, and I believe the second community meeting that was held at Gospel Chapel was a good turnout. I was there, as well as Councillor Thompson and Butler, and We did have people speak on topics that were of concern and interest. And I think that's the route, because they're planning a third one, they're planning a fourth one. They're planning one on the first Friday of every month, from my understanding from the last one. So I would prefer to let that community group take that route and invite people to speak. Dara did a presentation on Housing First, and we had, there was representatives from Citizens on Patrol. And it was an open discussion about all things of concern to the city, and regarding a treatment center and services and facilities that are required. I believe the mayor's got an announcement that he's going to be making tonight, and I don't know where you were, but I listened for 2 hours this afternoon about this conversation that we're going to be making an announcement on tonight. So it just seems that it's just duplicating what's already in the works.
Having said that, Councillor Hammond, this is actually probably a good opportunity to make that announcement. At an in-camera session this afternoon, Council received a presentation from the Boundary Emergency Transition Housing Society, known as BETS, on a proposal for a full-time shelter hub as per a funding opportunity through BC Housing. As part of the initiative, there is a requirement from the municipality to offer its support for the initiative. As per the resolution from Council to release from the in-camera, the following resolution was adopted for the benefit of the BETS and the BC Housing Initiative. The resolution read as, resolved that Council direct staff to commence the process and options in support of the BETS full-time shelter/hub initiative contingent on their receiving funding opportunities as applied and approved by BC Housing.
Can I just elaborate on that?
Councillor Hammond and Councillor Butler.
So by hub, it's actually a gateway. It's not just an emergency shelter. It's a facility that has many stakeholders involved, including interior health, mental health agencies, caseworkers that will assist in mental health, addictions, and counseling. It'll be a transition into mainstream. It's a gateway. It's not just a revolving door for a transition house. So it's going to help people get up back on their feet and back into the community, whether it be finding jobs or getting addictions counseling. So this is all encompassing. So it was a very good presentation, and I think I'm quite excited about it.
And this is, if I may comment, is just the start of what I was proposing a couple of months ago when we started this operational idea of a task force, which I put forward. This is just the start of it, just the tip of the iceberg. And I will be working in collaboration with Linda Larson, who will be setting up different steps and bringing different stakeholders into this. So it will be a complete collateral effort from everyone concerned, not just certain proponents, but a vast IH, to name one, the RCMP. There will be a huge involvement. And once we get all the proponents together and the stakeholders, then we will have our terms of reference established and we will move on from there. This is why I feel at this point in time to do these preliminary small steps, we need to do a collaborative effort as a group, not just individual steps towards this. This needs to be a complete collaborative, assertive approach to this problem, which is not only here in Grand Forks, which is in many municipalities. Councillor Tripp, and Councillor Butler, or Councillor Butler first, then Councillor Tripp.
I agree with Mr. Mayor. It does need to be a collaborative approach, and I think it's very unfortunate that when an MLA comes forward to speak to one of your councillors, that you would go above her head and cancel that meeting on her. She was prepared to come back and report to council on that. As far as the BEST program goes, it's a fabulous program. They are, as you said, Councillor Hammond, a hub, a gateway to other programs in the community, other services in the community, but they are not a treatment center. A treatment center is a long-term facility that can help rehabilitate people. That is not what BEST is offering. Working with the provincial government to create a treatment center in conjunction with BEST is what the mayor is saying as a collaborative approach. They are not a complete solution to the problem. They are part of it. And I'm hoping that Councillor Tripp will be able to continue to speak with Ms. Larson and the nonprofit to work on the treatment center as well. It's definitely needed, and if the funding is available, which we had assurance from the ministers when we spoke with them that the funding is there. And when you have someone coming forward with a business plan and an MLA that's willing to work with you, it's unfortunate that that has been blocked.
Just for the record, Councillor Butler, the language and the wording you're using as cancelled was never the word that was used by myself. There was a conversation with MLA Larson explaining our situation because she had asked me, so what do you want me to do? I did not give her a directive in any which way, shape, or form of what she should do. The discussion elaborated into the fact where we are with the homeless situation. At that point in time, as per her email stated, that she will let the task force go forward, and if any assistance is required, she will present it.
There is no task force.
That is for you to say.
Integrated group.
Tripp and Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad, and Councillor Butler for your comments. That's certainly a large part of what I was going to say. I think just the final piece that I'd like to say is that we all are working towards, at least I hope, we're all working towards this common goal of bringing good into our community and bringing supports and the things that we need, whether it's tertiary, secondary, supportive housing, whatever it is. I am not trying to take control or charge of anything. I am just trying to make contacts and bring people together so that there can be some movement towards the goal that I'm hoping that we all have in this community. So that's my say.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. We all received an email today from our MLA, Linda Larson, and she didn't cancel the meeting, she's postponed it with Councillor Tripp. And she is stating that it's her job to respond to the community's concerns as they relate to provincial agencies and funding. So she's hoping to meet with council and looking at the first couple of weeks in December before the Christmas holidays to further discuss this. So I think we're all getting a little maybe carried away in our concerns on this. I don't think that there's anybody that would not agree that there's an issue that we need to deal with. As a council, we have not discussed or made any decisions as it relates to any treatment centers. And so, again, I'm thinking maybe we're putting the cart before the horse, and maybe we just need to work with the agencies that already are in existence. They're the professionals, we certainly aren't. And just let it go from there. It's just unfortunate that I think there's perhaps some information that's being put out there that's being interpreted differently by individuals. Maybe I've got one interpretation, you have another. But I would just encourage the community as well, is to know that we are, as a group council, trying to work towards something that's going to benefit the community as a whole. And with the proper people, the professionals who have the background and the expertise with which to guide us.
Also, if I may comment, put a cap on this, after the discussion with MLA Larson, we both agreed that everyone in the community is getting anxious. You're all aware of that. But unfortunately, like government does work, it does not work at a rapid pace. But things are not being dropped on the wayside. They are being addressed in their proper protocol and proper necessities. We have to get all the stakeholders together. To deal with just a few of them will not work. We will be doing this again only partly and not the right way. And that has been concurred by most individuals that I've spoken to on this idea. So we have one step today, and it's going to move forward. It will be moving forward. I gave that assuredness. Okay, may I, all in favor to receive? Anyone opposed? So carried. Moving on to item 7, which is a report from Council Representative to the RDKB, which would be myself. It is as follows. At the the board meeting on November the 8th, I believe it was, there was quite a few interesting presentations made. One was by I'll do one at a time, I guess would be the best thing. BCTS, which is the BC Timber Sales. It's too lengthy to go into all the details, but kind of some of the highlight bullets were that the allowable annual cut was just over 1 million cubic meters per year. 55 staff members, 25 out of Nelson, Cranbrook, Castlegar, and Grand Forks, and the Cusp. Some of the other items were the stumpage received by government for Kootenai sales was approximately $30 per cubic meter, and the total stumpage approximately was $30 million per year. We had another very interesting presentation by Dr. David Mary. It's regarding the patient medical home care, the primary care network as we call it, which will be comprised of primary care nurses. A very interesting presentation because some of the highlight points were that the Kootenai Boundary Hospitals are running at about 102% occupancy rate. The IH target is 95%. This program in New Zealand has been in effect, for example, 20 years ago. The Boundary was fortunate because as per, let me get my notes here, as per IH CEO Chris Mazurich announced a $500,000 towards the establishing of the PMH and the PCN model in the Boundary region, which is a very, very good initiative. We were chosen to do that because we were selected by IH. It really, really shows the interest that we are able to put forward in this program. The PMH proof of concept is basically based on enhancing the patient medical homes, where primary care nurses and social program officers join clinics using quality improvement techniques to enhance the patient care and the provider satisfaction. And the second part would be the integration with existing health authority services. Existing IH teams like mental health, public health, home health, working more closely and collaboratively with the clinics. This is a new road and new inroad towards our future. Other than that, I have one more, which is not related to any meetings. The subject is the Kettle River Watershed Management Plan Steering Committee action item from October the 3rd, 2017 meeting. It was in regards to the Commonplace Consulting contract funding shortfall of $5,800. So the motion was agreed to be split between Councillor Rothfeld and Mayor Ed Smith from Greenwood and Midway respectfully, and the amounts were $1,000 for Grand Forks. So my recommendation is to Council to approve the $1,000 contribution to the Commonplace Consulting Limited contract as per the recommendation and motion made by the Kettle River Watershed Management Plan Steering Committee at their October 3rd, 2017 meeting. So I would need a mover on that. Councillor Tripp.
I'm just wondering, could you just identify again what it was for?
It's the Commonplace Consulting Limited contract funding shortfall for the watershed management plan.
Okay, contract funding shortfall.
Yeah, $5,800. So, pardon me?
Yeah, for Jessica.
Yes, for Jessica Macy, yes. And we had agreed through the three neighboring communities that $1,000 each, and then I believe RDKB put in the difference.
I'll put that in 20.
Councillor Ross, seconder. Councillor Hammond. Councillor Butler.
Why was there a 5,800 overrun? I mean, that's quite a small steering committee.
The exact reason wasn't given. I was not brought forward, but it was approved. Yes, go ahead. Councillor Ross.
I don't think it really, through you, Mayor Conrad, I don't think it really was relevant, the size of the steering committee. I think it was a workload, and they underestimated, which is often the case. This is a fairly underfunded amount of work for one person to do, and that happens a lot with these projects. They ask for a lot of work with very little funding, and I just think that Jessica Mays has put in more hours than they actually were able to budget for. And it's not uncommon for them to, for there to be an overrun. Unfortunately, that's the way these grant funds pop and go. They just underfund them. It's important work, and if they don't get enough money, perhaps next time when they get it funded, they can justify increasing the amount of money to pay somebody appropriately to do that volume of work.
Yeah, the target, I guess, was too low because the actual reading was that there was approximately shortfall to complete the contract through December 31st, 2017. And the actual breakdown of the contribution was Midway was 1,000, Grand Forks was 1,000, Greenwood was 500, and the regional directors were 1,100 each. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is such an important piece of work that's being done, and if it's going to require additional funding to do it and do it right, then I will certainly support the resolution.
In reality, when I was appointed as the representative, I had the authority to make that decision right on the spot, but I did not, as so did Councillor Rothfeld and Mayor Ed Smith. Their comments were that they would consult with council to get the approval. It says it right here. Respective council confirmed contributions with Jessica. So, Councillor Butler.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with approving this time, but we were talking about water rates today, and from the research that I've done in other communities, when you start classifying your aquifer as an asset and you start maintaining that asset, Gibson's, for example, is spending $28,000 a year monitoring their aquifer, and that all gets rolled over into our costs on our water bills. So
Not our costs, their costs.
no, when we start investing to maintain and monitor our aquifer to the tune of $28,000 a year, like other communities are doing, it starts to reflect in our water bills. So I'm okay, you know, this is just a small amount, but I would just caution council to not go down that road of spending tens of thousands of dollars on these type of projects.
So you don't think we should monitor our aquifer?
I think what we're doing right now is sufficient, and I think using our common sense, we can monitor practices, farming practices that are going on in our valley, and collaborate with the regional director and the steering committee for the project to make sure that we're not contaminating our aquifer. As far as the levels in the aquifer, we've had many studies done by the provincial government that have assured us it's in Class A1 aquifer and that it is highly productive. So at this point, without having prolonged drought, I mean, our aquifer is recharged every year by the rainfall and by the snowmelt. Right now, we're in good standing, and it's a very important, I don't devalue our aquifer. It's something that we thrive on. Both our rivers feed that aquifer. We need to be very careful that upstream, we're not damming that aquifer so that we're not getting recharged. But at this point, I don't want to see us burdening our ratepayers for our water rates with anything more than they can handle.
Councillor Thompson.
Just a point of clarification through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Butler. How many municipalities are paying $28,000 a year for monitoring their aquifer? You mentioned one. How many in the province are doing that, spending that kind of money? Do you know?
Well, this is an asset management BC initiative. It's asset management 2.0. So after you put in the water meters and you set your rates and you classify your assets as eco-assets, this is the road that you go down. So Gibson's is a pilot project for this next step in asset management.
So you don't know for sure that it's $28,000 per municipality?
It says that on their website that that's what they're spending now.
That's what they're spending, but that doesn't mean that, you know, I mean, I don't want to give out an alarm or...
No, and I'm just saying that I would caution council not to go down that road as a pilot project. I mean, they are doing some wonderful work in Gibson's, absolutely, but I just don't want to see us investing that type of money and burdening our ratepayers with that.
I don't think any of us here would want to burn our ratepayers. That's certainly not the intent, and never was with the water meter issue. But I think Gibson's had other issues that we don't have with regard to their water, and so I don't want to unduly alarm our residents that we're going to be spending that kind of money on monitoring because we don't have those issues. So if there is a proposal to monitor, that would come before council. It would be a budget item and it would be made public. So, but I just don't want to throw numbers out that I can't back up with facts as it relates to our own utility.
And just quickly as a comment, to disassociate ourselves in any which way from the Kettle River Water Management Plan would be a very dangerous path going down, because I think we have to stay collaboratively associated with that organization. It's in our best interest, and for the minimal amount that they request of the city, I don't think that impacts anything on our taxpayers.
And that's what I stated at the beginning. This is a minimal amount, but I just don't want to see it increasing each year.
Well, if so, it's shared collaboratively with many directors of many municipalities, so the lion's share is definitely not from Grand Forks. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of receipt of the RDKB report? Anyone opposed? So carried. Okay, moving on to...
Did we vote on the resolution though?
Yeah.
I put second, I
Oh,
did second, we didn't vote on the resolution.
We didn't have
Well,
a mover and seconder.
I'm sorry, what was that?
the resolution that was...
We didn't have, we had a mover and a seconder for the resolution, but we didn't have one for the mayor's report.
Okay, well, we can do that after.
Okay, so all in favor of the resolution to approve 1,000? Anyone opposed? So carried. So now I need a mover to, I thought we had a mover on the seconder for the mayor's report, or the RDKB representative. Okay, we have a mover. Councillor Ross, Councillor Thompson. All those in favor to receive? So carried. Okay, moving on to the next topic of conversation. Okay, recommendations from staff for decision.
Mr. Mayor, I'm going to recuse myself for the next item.
Okay. My apologies, the computer keeps
Oh,
looking at it on me. Okay, item 8A. Subject matter is the Grand Forks Downtown Business Association fee-for-service funding agreement. The recommendation is that council approves of the fee-for-service funding agreement for 2017 between the City of Grand Forks and the Grand Forks Downtown Business Association. And further be resolved that council authorizes the release of the $5,000 funding for the Grand Forks Downtown Business Association. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Thompson, and seconder. Councillor Ross. Discussion, Councillor Butler?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to staff. When we received the delegation, I thought that we had made a resolution to receive budget and financial information. And am I missing that here? I don't see that. And also in the document where it says that they agreed to provide the following services. I don't see that part filled in.
Sorry, I can see you.
Your worship, it was, the report was contingent on council's resolution that we got on the 30th of October, I believe it was, and it was to move forward with this, and it was contingent on receiving a fee-for-service. Now, there are two fee-for-services for council's review. They're the same. The first one is filled out by the Downtown Business Association.
Okay.
The second one is just showing the highlight pieces so council can see where the blanks were filled in.
Okay. And the budgeting, the financials?
I think that was the Chamber of Commerce
No.
delegation that was here.
Your worship,
Correct.
there was no talk would be on a resolution contingent on the budgeting, but there is, I believe, a letter on the budgeting piece where they're doing the request for the fee for service for the following year.
So
Councillor Thompson, Councillor Tripp.
this resolution deals with the 2017 fiscal year.
Oh, I thought we'd already done that one.
No,
No,
this is the fee-for-service contract that we're dealing with 2017.
says it right on
okay.
the
Okay.
recommendation.
Well, I was wondering why the dates were wrong. I thought I was just using the old one.
We budgeted for it last
Basically, a year
year.
behind on this,
Okay.
it was this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you look on page 30 of 109, you'll see the
what
Yeah,
their
I saw that. That's why I thought this was the new one being presented for 2018 and then, but nothing filled in.
Yeah, I thought that at
That's
first.
what the 2018 one is, the contingent one, the budget. Councillor Tripp?
Okay, so would that then clear up this, this point here, which is on page 31, which says, it's item number C, approved annual budget, amount of funding allocated for the fiscal year, and tax for the Grand Forks Downtown Business Association fee for service. Would that be for 2018? Then we would be looking for that approved annual budget?
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Something to get Councillor. Item 8B. Unsightly property at 987 Kettle River Drive. The opportunity to be heard. The recommendation is that council provides the owner and or tenant of the property an opportunity to explain their plans to clean up the property known as 987 Kettle River Drive so that it is no longer a nuisance and a time frame within which to bring the property into compliance with the unsightly premise bylaw. Council is not satisfied with the proposed actions of the owner or the owner fails to appear before council, the following resolution is in order. Before we move into
I'm here.
the recommendation,
Am I supposed to speak?
I need a mover first to approve. Councillor Ross, Councillor Thompson. Okay. Go ahead, sir.
Hi, my name is Lauren Hood. I live at 987, the property in question. Seems to be a nuisance to very few people. I have one neighbor that tends to, I think, take his personal vendettas out on me through the bylaws of this town that only suits his purposes at the time. For example, bylaws in which he doesn't like the site of the property is okay to abide by, and he'll bring it up to your attentions but the bylaws that he doesn't like, such as long as you're using noise that is not how the bylaws says, it's not disturbing more than one person at one time. He doesn't think that that bylaw exists for me. So at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, for example, I'd be hammering in a nail into a fence that I'm trying to block his sight line so that he doesn't have to say it's unsightly, which I was directed to by Mr. Alcock that was okay to do. So I was doing that at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, took it upon himself to take pictures of me doing it and saying that I was causing a disruption to the neighborhood and that everybody wants me out. He furthermore went to a neighbor, some Neanderthal, to take pictures and to furthermore call my wife certain names that I'd really love to use today just so they would give the right effect for the ladies in the room. And then every argument he loses, he goes to get this Neanderthal to come and kick in my door and wreck my property.
Nice.
Now, if he has something to say, and I've done everything asked of me by bylaws, I've cleaned up the property, you can take pictures right now, everything in his sight line has been covered or tarped or put away, or I just took 8 truckloads of things that I've collected off your properties, not yours in general, but the general people's properties, so that I can try to make a dog. All I'm trying to do is put food on the table for me and my wife, and I'm doing it in the legal means necessary. Now, if I'm going to be stopped from doing such things, then I'm going to be the one you're talking about in the next homeless, because I need to make something. And what he's doing is criminal, it's wrong, and I'm going to have to, one day I'm going to fight back, and it won't be through the bylaw. It's been cleaned up, it's been attended to, I've had Mr. Alcock at my house and he said I was making progress, then he turned around and said I wasn't making progress to the property owner. So I don't know what is right. Am I making progress or am I not making progress? But I'll tell you what, I don't need people coming down and wrecking my property, threatening me and my wife, and calling her just despicable names. I'm outraged. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess we don't have Mr. Alcock here. Mr. Bruce, are you able to comment on those statements?
Yeah, I'm afraid Bud had to run up to Kelowna for an emergency, but I'll try and speak to his situation. Thank you, Lauren. Appreciate the situation. Bud has try to get some resolution to this particular matter. I think at the end of the day, he's still not quite convinced that enough progress, I'm sorry, I know he's not convinced that enough progress has been made to rectify the situation. It's not just to one individual or another, but it's certainly, we've had other complaints as well. And it does need to be addressed. But I dare say, but personally, and I would rather Bud speak to this, but I drive by there every day, and Your Worship, I have seen some progress there.
I think the question remains, if I may interrupt, is there satisfactory compliance?
Today, no, but with maybe a few weeks more time, there could well be.
How long has the timelines already been extended? And how many times have they been extended?
Well, I believe the first letter was a 30-day notification. The second letter was another 30-day.
They were both 10 days, Your Honor.
They could be 10-day notifications.
Because as I heard, this is as a comment from the person that complained, it's been over a period of months now.
We always try to resolve things without having to go down formal legal avenues. Well, we most certainly have been working on this matter for a number of months. We're not prepared to work on this matter much longer.
Okay. So I guess the question remains, as per bylaws department, is it satisfactory or is it not? Without giving any more extension to make it satisfactory, is it satisfactory after those notices have been given?
My understanding is that it is not.
Thank you.
Do we have any current photos?
Councillor Butler?
They should be in the report.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. I took a drive by there tonight, and as far as the front yard goes, there's nothing in the front yard. It looks fine. The three sides of fencing have been tarped off. Now, I'm not sure if that is suitable with our bylaws to have tarps as fences. I can see that the property owner has gone to some trouble to try and block view. I am curious, I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this, but what are you doing with those pallets? I appreciate that you're trying to make money on the property, but would that require a small business license, like a permit to have that on the property, and would that bring it into compliance? Because I can see taking pallets apart to sell the wood or to make things out of them could be a good business. And I'm just wondering if there's a way of, tidying up a bit. And it looks, from the previous pictures I saw, that does look like it's been tidied up a bit. But if you are operating a business, you're going to need those pallets. But is that permissible to have that type of business operation in that zoning? I'm not sure.
I think, Councillor Thompson?
The gentleman was
The pallets aren't part of the business. Those were just, I was using those. I was going to make a deck and a walkway and a greenhouse, and that's why I was just collecting pallets for the wood to do those things. And I asked Mr. Alcock if I could use pallets to build those. He said there was. I've gotten rid of all the pallets. I have maybe 10 pallets left. I was working right up until the meeting, right until 7 o'clock.
I know, I saw you.
Yeah, so this isn't something I just put beside me. I've taken Mr. Alcock's recommendations, and I've taken the fact of my neighbor's sightline, and I put a tarp. You can't even see any of that anymore. None of that on the picture you can see, regardless. I'm taking the proper steps.
If you're building, you said you're
they watched me do it for 6 months.
Are you building a greenhouse with pallets, you said?
I'm sorry?
Are you building a greenhouse with pallets?
I was. I had planned on it.
Did you obtain a building permit?
I didn't need to for 10 feet.
Okay. I think the recommendation to council would be they would have to accept the manager's recommendation, and he deems it is not satisfactory at this point in time. So Councillor Thompson, go ahead first.
Okay, first of all, thank you for coming to speak to the issue. A couple of questions, if I may. How much longer do you need to bring that property into compliance?
I would have to know exactly what the compliance is, considering I've been told that I was making progress, and Mr. Alcock came to my property and said, yes, build the fence as you are. He said it's unorthodox, but it's allowable. I've taken even that fence down and made it even smaller and more condensed, and it won't take me long at all. I just need to know exactly what it is that's supposed to be done.
Okay, because what we're being asked to do tonight is to authorize our staff to proceed with the third and final notice, and that we provide a date and time that you have to bring the property into compliance with the bylaw. Now, I'm assuming that you've had discussions with the bylaw enforcement officer, and that he would have advised you what you need to do to bring the property into compliance.
Yes.
So my question to you then is, how much time do you need to meet that requirement?
As far as I know, I already met the compliance when he came to my house and he said, yes, that's all acceptable, build the fence this way, and then the next thing I know I got another letter. So I already thought that I had complied. And then I got the second letter, and like I said, I've been working until 7 o'clock this evening.
That's your interpretation, sir.
Interpretation of what he told me.
Yeah, no,
But we're being asked again, and obviously you're not in compliance.
Okay, so can I ask what it is that I need to do, exactly, to the letter?
to our management bylaws.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. My understanding of the spirit and certainly the way that bylaw is written, providing everything is screened solidly from the ground 6 feet up along your property lines, and nothing is visible from the streets. Compliance has been more or less achieved. Thanks.
So have you met that criteria, 6 feet from the ground?
Yes, I have. You can't see anything from the streets.
Yeah, but you accomplished that with tarps. Tarps is not a permanent solution.
It's not a temporary, it's not a permanent situation.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not talking about just the streets, I'm talking about all property lines.
Exactly.
And certainly from the streets, it needs to be dealt with. But all property lines, a 6-foot solid screen seems to meet the intent of our zoning bylaw.
The reason we have the unsightly premise bylaws is because we have to show respect to our neighbors.
Correct.
It's not just to the city or the municipal properties. You have to be respectful to your neighbors, because if you were in their shoes, you would not appreciate it either if someone did the reverse to you. And this is why. And if this is not dealt with, it sets a precedent.
And this is the proper way to go about it, by going to get some Neanderthal next door to come kick in my door so he's going to burn my house down and call my wife certain names isn't the right way to go about it. So what do I do about that? I call the cops and he tells me to give the guy leeway.
This is hearsay.
It's not hearsay. Ask the cops.
Okay, sir. I will have to ask you to refrain from your behavior this way.
I said what I had to say. I've complied.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait, sorry, if you, just one more thing, I just wanted to say, when I did drive by, I noticed that the property line with the neighbor has like a mesh that's, like the white patio crisscross. It's not, it's not completely blacked out like your other sides are. I'm just wondering if that would...
Lattice. I can't touch that.
Okay, I did not see a solid barrier between the two properties.
Maybe that's you.
Oh, you did? Okay, I didn't see it when I drove by, so.
Yeah, it's more in like right where my car deck is, my car patio.
Would you like to?
Can't see anymore.
Okay, one comment from our manager.
Hang on, please, Lauren. We'll have another look at our earliest convenience to see exactly where you're at with this level of screening, and certainly make it very clear what the expectations are.
Don't misunderstand the comments that are made here tonight. This is not final yet. We will readdress it. We will look at it. If you are in compliance, you have nothing to worry about, and there's nothing to be concerned about.
Yes, sir.
But we have to get the terminology of what you deem as being compliant and is what is compliant as per our bylaws. There could be a very, very big gap between those two interpretations, and this has to be solidified as far as what the real interpretation is. Once it's made clear to you, then you will be giving a timeline to comply.
Yeah, without question.
So if you are okay with that, then that's where we're at.
Absolutely.
Okay. Councillor Thompson.
Thanks for staying. Would 30 days?
As soon as I know what the compliance is, then I'll
Yeah,
comply.
exactly.
Okay, but
Go back and speak. Okay, back to go back.
Yeah, I think what Mr. Bruce said, we will have the bylaw officers go back, and possibly Mr. Bruce will accompany him, and this will be rectified properly this time. You will be given the proper detailed instructions of what compliance refers to as per bylaw,
Yes, sir.
and then you have the opportunity to comply.
That's all I ask.
Okay?
Thank you.
And then we will set a timelines when you have that to be able to comply if you are not per se in compliance yet.
It'll be complied with. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Councillor Tripp.
Councillor Tripp and Councillor Hammond.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, through to Mr. Bruce there. I'm sure that the bylaw for fencing, when you're talking about that solid screening, would preclude something that is very temporary. I'm assuming that that bylaw would be talking about some kind of a fencing system that is permanent. And so I'm just wondering how temporary screening that are basically just tarps hanging over some sticks would qualify as appropriate fencing. I know if in my neighborhood, if my neighbor had that kind of tarped fencing, I would be very unhappy.
A quick question. Is that what the property looks like now? Or near proximity to that?
I believe that photograph was taken a few days ago.
Excuse me, sir, you're not, cannot speak.
Mr. Mayor, I believe that photograph was taken less than a week ago.
Okay, well
It may well.
that is definitely an unsightly property, and I don't think anybody would like to live beside something.
Mr. Mayor, that's not visible from the street. That's taken.
That's irregardless, even from a neighbor. I'm sure you would
Yeah.
not like a property like that beside your house.
It is visible from the lane, I might add.
The bylaws do not only read from city property, it relates also
Yeah.
to any property.
And if I may answer Councillor Tripp's question, Your Worship. Fencing is kind of nebulous, isn't it? What is solid, what isn't solid, what constitutes a visible screen and what doesn't. Our expectation is it would be something that is going to last, certainly not indefinitely, but last longer than a windstorm. What we struggle with, I said it's not just in various residential neighborhoods, but in others. But certainly our expectation would be that it be robust enough to constitute a visible barrier. The reason I say 6 feet, although our fence height is permitted to be upwards of 8 feet on rear yards and side yards, only the bottom 6 feet are permitted to be solid. The upper 2 feet need to be relatively open in terms of lattice or other things. So it's really only the 6 foot portion that we can really say you gotta, keep it solid and keep it something so that it can withstand the windstorm.
And not that I want to get involved directly in this, but we're not only talking about the pallets. Why are there 4 lawnmowers there? And,
Well, maybe he repairs them and resells them.
maybe, possibly, again, it's not our concern, but I don't know. Let's see where it goes. Councillor Hammond.
Yeah, I have a question about our bylaw. If it was fenced 6 feet all the way around, or 8 feet on the sides and the back, and it wasn't visible from the street, that'd be fine as long as there were ranchers on either side. If you've got a 2-story house living next to this, and you're looking down into this constantly from your living room, your main floor, or whatever, then it is visible. So does that still apply? And secondly, just because it's not visible from the street, does that take away health concerns for the neighborhood? And at what point does it become a health concern for the neighborhood? And just because it's not visible doesn't mean it's not there.
Stress factor. Okay, so, did I call the question first?
Well, I have an answer to that.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I'll certainly try and answer that. That's another very nebulous question. At what point does someone's mess become someone's not mess? It's a good question. Should we have 20-foot tall fences surrounding properties in the event you have a 2-foot tall house? But I believe the intent of the bylaw is you can kind of only go so far in terms of what a person can or cannot do, most certainly in their backyard. Some would say that's sculpture. I wouldn't, quite frankly. And you know, at the end of the day, to make sure things aren't visible from most certainly public thoroughfares, lanes, sidewalks, streets, that kind of stuff. That I believe is what the intent of the bylaw is. And I may be incorrect, but and we could certainly look at that bylaw and go further. And I'm sorry, I forgot about the second part of your question.
Health concerns.
Oh, health concerns, yeah, you're right. There's a great big river and there's a great big ravine on both sides of this particular place. I'm not so sure the health concerns are, by all means, through the mayor, there could well be health concerns there. There's health concerns all over the place, you know, in the ravines and in the rivers. And I don't know that we're able to really quite, you know, curtail those problems. I get it though, because I do get the phone calls that say there's vermin, there's things.
But there's also other related health concerns. Stress is one could be very stressful for an individual because every taxpayer has the right to an appreciable property that he has to look at beside him. I mean, everyone, our taxpayers in our community have that same equal right. One should not be burdened by the fact that you're living beside someone that has an unsightly premise and have to wake up to it day after day and have to live with it and swallow the lump, so to speak, and just not look at it. That would be an unfair situation for that individual, and say, well, why am I paying taxes on this property if I have to look at this all the time? So I can see the dilemma for it. I'm not looking at this particular case, but any case like this. It's only fair justice that everyone should wake up to an appreciable surrounding around them to the best ability. Councillor Tripp?
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, I'm just looking at the bylaw here that we have a copy of, and it's item C on page 47, where it says no owner of a parcel shall cause, allow, or permit the accumulation on a parcel of filth, discarded materials, unwholesome matter, or rubbish of any kind, whether or not for commercial purposes or as part of a trade or calling, including but not limited to dead animals, paper products, crockery, glass, metal, plastics, plastic containers, wires, ropes, machinery, tires, appliances, or any other scrap or salvage. So I think it very clearly states there in the bylaw that that bylaw is being broken by those pictures. I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind.
No, it's the company name is Sanford.
I'm sorry?
Councillor Butler.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think both building permit is required to build a porch, is it not?
Through the mayor, a porch, yes. A patio that's less than 2 feet from the ground, no. And I'm not so sure pallets would really amount to.
I think we're going down the round subject matter right now. We're deviating. I think the issue has to be resolved by the bylaw officer and manager of bylaws. And
Mr. Mayor, if I might add, I believe there is a resolution of sorts that needs to be proposed, and certainly my suggestion would be, and not so much just with this case, but with most, that we afford the property owners an additional 2 weeks to resolve these issues to our satisfaction. Otherwise, enforcement action would have to ensue.
good recommendation. So then, be it further resolved that council authorizes staff to proceed with the third and final notice, with the date being a 2-week timeline to bring the property into compliance with the bylaw. Do I have a mover? Councillor Tripp, seconder. Councillor Butler.
There's a question.
Okay, last one.
Yeah, I think where the confusion's coming in for the property owner is that he was told that as long as it wasn't visible from the street that it was acceptable, because he's gone and fenced it all off to the best of his ability. But the bylaw seems to state that you're just not allowed to accumulate
Yeah, exactly.
that stuff, whether it's fenced off or not. So I'm concerned that maybe he's been given false understanding that if it's not visible and it's fenced off, that he's okay. And now we might be telling him the opposite.
Well, this is why he has his day in the sun where he will be approached, given the proper data and criteria to which he has to comply to, and he has 2 weeks then to comply. And we will put this one to rest. Unless,
I think simple clarification
yeah,
for him.
well, that's what we're
A copy of
starting
the
with.
bylaw
Yeah.
with some highlighted, points.
Yeah.
so he
Usually
understands what he
that's
has to
given to
comply.
an owner.
Is it?
But I think the bottom line here should state, as per our bylaw, that it has nothing to do with fencing. You've got to get the excess stuff off your property unless it's part of your house or something. So, okay, all in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Item 8C, unsightly property at 2314 Central Avenue, opportunity to be heard. The recommendation is that council provide the owner and/or tenant of the property an opportunity to explain their plans to clean up the property known as 2314 Central Avenue so that it is no longer a nuisance, and the time frame within which to bring the property into compliance with the unsightly premise bylaw. If council is not satisfied with the proposed action of the owner, or the owner fails to appear before council, the following resolution is in order, and I will read that as soon as we have a mover on allowing the individual to present himself. And then we have Councillor Butler, seconder, Councillor Tripp. The individual in the gallery, or did the individual just leave?
No, I don't think that is.
No, that wasn't it? No. Okay. Well, then let us proceed. And furthermore, resolved that council authorizes staff to proceed with a third and final notice, and the date recommendation is 2 weeks again? Okay. And a date recommendation of two weeks to bring the property into compliance with the bylaw. 2 weeks is known as 14 days, correct? Move it, please, Councillor Ross. Second.
You want to see the pictures? Yeah.
Do we have the pictures?
Oh, yeah.
I drove by that one tonight too. See their agenda.
I drove by it last night.
Oh, we drove by it.
Were these pictures taken by our bylaw officer?
Mhm.
Because they're not dated like the other one was.
Through the mayor, I apologize for not having dates. They were taken on Monday.
Was it garbage day?
Monday as in?
No.
Yesterday was.
It
Yesterday?
still looks the same.
No, I had asked Bud before his trip to Kelowna to photograph these properties on Monday. And-
Yesterday.
Previously. To get onto our agenda.
My apologies. Here's today's pictures. They're,
Oh, okay.
Unfortunately, they haven't changed, but they were taken last Monday.
Yeah, it's still the same today.
Okay. All right. Again, the question asked of you, Mr. Bruce, is still unsatisfactory compliance?
According to our bylaw enforcement officer, there's been no progress made.
Okay, thank you.
And there have been complaints?
Yes, there has.
Okay. Because as in every bylaw, it has to be complaint generated, correct?
If I might add, Mr. Mayor, this property does have a history. This has gone on for well over a year. There has been periods of, it's been good, it's been bad, it's been good, it's been bad. It was not good at this period last year, according to our files, and it's back to the same condition.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so all those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Okay. 8B. Unsightly property at 7746 McCallum View Drive, opportunity to be heard.
I wish we didn't get a seconder on that one, the Council Ross with the motion.
Oh, I thought we did.
No, I'll second.
Oh, that was true. I thought we had it. My apologies.
This is the problem, there's having to record names.
Chair,
Okay.
I
Gotta
think
call
it's
it out that you don't proceed with conversation on a topic. You don't have a seconder, you don't proceed with
Well,
conversation.
recording, I'm talking about in the
I
minutes.
think if the mayor just says, move bylaws, seconded by Jeff, or whatever.
Sorry. Okay. Subject matter, unsightly property, 7746 McCallum Drive, opportunity to be heard. Just getting into the moment. Resolved that council provides the owner and/or tenant of the property an opportunity to explain their plans to clean up the property known as 7746 McCallum Drive, so that it is no longer a nuisance, and the time frame within which to bring the property into compliance with the unsightly premise bylaw. Council is not satisfied with the proposed actions of the owner, or the owner fails to appear before council, the following resolution is in order. Can I have a movement, please, to authorize conversation? Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Hammett. Do we have anyone in the gallery? 7746. Somebody would like to be in the gallery? All in favor?
Oh, she did write a letter.
Oh.
It's part of the, I think it's attached as part of the agenda.
Or her son.
Mr. Mayor?
Councillor Butler.
I did take a drive by this property as well. I don't know, at some point we have to ask ourselves just how picky are we gonna be when people have, you know, a lot of people have got things going on in their lives and this is the best that they can do. And to come down on them harder when they're already doing the best they can do. This property, where's our line? How picky are we gonna get? I can live with this one, really.
Do we have pictures of this one?
Bruce?
Yeah.
Does this property have a history?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
But it has received complaints.
Has it been complaint generated?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, so we have received complaints.
Okay. What has been the timeline, the extent of, let's say, the complaint and the non-compliance approximately?
As Councillor Butler has suggested, Mr. Mayor, this one is a bit more complicated. But we have most certainly gone through our regular procedures in terms of trying to hold hands and achieve a certain level of compliance, of which we've unfortunately had a little satisfaction. This, along with the others, are simply following the procedural guidelines that the municipality has to deal with unsightly properties in which we're getting complaints. This is another one of which, Your Worship, you and Council, you're more than capable of making the appropriate.
Unfortunately, as my stand on this is a bylaw has to be enforced, otherwise we might as well remove it. So if there's no compliance on it, then it's non-compliant, period. There's no middle of the road. It either complies or they don't. Councillor Tripp.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, just looking at those pictures, I mean, you wouldn't really necessarily identify it as that unsightly a property, but I'm assuming that it's the vehicles that are the issue here. And I just wonder, are vehicles dealt with in any sort of a different manner than other forms of refuse or whatever you want to call it that's on properties?
Through the Mayor to Councillor Tripp. Certainly vehicles we are permitted, I believe, one unlicensed vehicle on a property that's not contained within a building. And I could be wrong, I don't have my bylaw in front of me, but that being said, this complaint is not generated necessarily by the vehicles. And I did ask our law enforcement officer, Alcock, to take better photographs of it, because unfortunately what you don't see here is really quite a collection of debris. Nevertheless, it's complaint generated, and there is debris of which cannot be considered sculpture and falls in that category of unscreened and unfortunately unsightly. Yeah.
Again, complaint generated has to be acted on.
Providing they're beyond bona fide legitimate complaints. Mr.
Yeah,
Mayor?
exactly.
Correct.
Councillor Thompson? Otherwise, we set ourselves up for a precedent, because then everyone else then will say, well, how come this one's allowed and this one, and then we get into a catch-22 where we don't want to be.
I would just point out to council that we have dealt with another unsightly premise that had basically similar issues as a couple of others, and that property was, we did give the property owners some additional time to deal with to bring in their property into compliance with the bylaw. I know the property, I know Lucy personally. Yeah, her sons are an issue and are giving her some difficulties. However, the city cannot be the ones that are dealing with those kinds of issues. There are other avenues that she can seek to get some supports. And it's unfortunate, but I don't think that we can make an exception for someone, for whatever given reason, age or infirmity or anything else. So there are remedies that can be and should be dealt with, and I don't think we have a choice but to proceed.
Councillor Butler?
So it appears there's 4 vehicles that are parked there in the picture. There's a carport on either side of the house, and then there's the van on the side. So I'm imagining at least 2 of those are unlicensed, so those would need to be removed. There is some accumulation in a carport, but how many of us here have lots of people have got messy sheds? How messy is too messy? What exactly has to be done to bring this place into compliance?
But again, Councillor Butler, that's not our role as council to be the bylaw officers. We have,
I want to know what needs to be done
Well,
to bring it into compliance.
the
There you go,
bylaw
Mr. Mayor.
officers know that, and they will deal with it. And unfortunately, if they don't comply, there's no compliance. Otherwise, just remove the bylaw from the books. If we don't enforce them, they are useless. So they are the authority having jurisdiction, and they should deal with it. Our decision is only based on the facts that we get from our managers and our bylaw officer. That is our role here as council, to make a decision based on what information is given to us. We don't make a decision based on...
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm asking for information to know
Yeah.
what needs to be done to bring the property under compliance.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. What I'd suggest in this particular situation, as with the others, is we afford these individuals 14 days to know exactly what our expectations are. In fact, at our earliest opportunity, within the next few days, we will let them know exactly what our expectations are, with the hope that within 14 days we don't have to take further action.
Exactly. So as long as it's given to them with total clarity, at that point there will be no reason why they should not be able to comply.
If I might add, Mr. Mayor, I believe in all cases our expectations have been quite well known, but if they need one more opportunity to understand our expectations, it would be quite fair to give it within a limited time frame.
Thank you. Having said that, let's move on to the, Councillor Tripp.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Conn. If I could just ask for one clarification here from Mr. Bruce. The letter, the second notice says you're required to remove the debris from your property. So perhaps if there was some real specifics given about exactly what that debris was, would it make it easier for them to know just exactly what they were expected to remove?
That's a point well taken, Councillor Tripp, through the mayor. I believe the bylaw says debris. We're working to define debris. We're working to achieve compliance. Thanks.
Councillor Ross.
I'm seeing, if you look at section, I'm sure you see 33.1.2, no, 3.1B is, it talks specifically about vehicles. And I think that might be more the point there, is the vehicles, having to move those vehicles. And I'm not sure how much it costs to move a vehicle that doesn't start and run itself, so they gotta get it towed away. And that comes at quite an expense to the owner. So my concern is that the cost of moving these vehicles that have accumulated on the property, and I'm pretty sure that's what the problem
Well,
is. Can
that's
we be
an
more
assumption.
specific?
That's an assumption.
What do you mean? What's an assumption?
That it's the vehicles, it's the basic general statement.
If you look
here.
at this, it's very specific
Yeah,
about
but-
vehicles. They're not allowed to be there for more than 12 months, and there can be no vehicle, unlicensed vehicle can't be there for more than 12 months, and no vehicle can be on the property that can't move under its own power.
I agree, but the bottom line is, the non-compliance is the main key words in
I know,
this.
but people might need help with that. Can we just be a little bit more strategic in helping these folks that seem to be really struggling?
If I might, Your Worship, it would be my belief that when this issue and the complaint was received, that the bylaw enforcement officer would discuss with the offender, for lack of a better word, what the issues are. And so they would know that these are the issues that are causing, that you need to deal with to bring your property into compliance. I don't think it needs to be detailed in any letters. They know, they've been made aware. And for us to sit here and second guess what is causing the bylaw officer concern or what the level of complaint is, I don't think we need to be involved in that. I think all we need to do is support our staff in doing their job
Yeah.
that we have contracted in this particular case for him to do.
Yeah.
Well,
In
then
this
you
case,
should
it's
give us
operational.
photos.
It's operational, and we've already discussed this now 3 times, and I've mentioned it, that we are going to be going out to give a better clarification to the first individual that was here and explain to him exactly, so if there's any misunderstanding of what conformity means and compliance means. But that's all we have to do. And if that point in time, as Mr. Bruce has stated, that's already been done, and still they seem to find an excuse why they feel they're in compliance. Well, our role as council, as I've stated again, is only to adhere to the information and the data and the facts we get. The rest is operational. And we do have to let them just do their job. We cannot intervene and make statements, well, we should look at this and maybe it's this.
Don't
That's
give us
not our role.
photos then. Like, you give us photos and then say, well, don't comment. It's obviously he was taking photos of those vehicles.
Well, the
Why
photos
would
are just backup to show that they are in non-compliance, that they're showing why they're in non-compliance. I think it speaks for itself.
But to say remove debris.
Anyway, I'm going to move on. I'm going to call the question. The second part of the resolution is that council authorizes staff to proceed with the third and final notice with a date of 14 days to timeline to bring the property into compliance with the bylaw. Mover, please. Councillor Hammond, seconder, Councillor Thompson. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Are there any more?
If somebody asked me to move debris, I'd rake my leaves.
Especially if you have a mental illness, you might have been spoken to once, but you might not remember that the next day.
Well, there we are. We're second guessing again. That's not our job.
It is our job, that's why it's been brought before council, for council to oversee it, so we are doing our job.
And she also wrote.
Our job is to give the recommendation to our bylaw officer based on what he has furnished the council to make a decision if they are justified to fulfill the role of compliance.
We have done that, but we also are encouraging him to maybe be a bit more specific.
Well, we don't know that he hasn't been.
No, I think some
Well,
of the
maybe he
comments,
needs to do it
I think some
again.
of the comments I heard this evening were to be a little more lenient.
No,
And that is
no,
not
that's
what we are
not
here to do.
said.
Oh,
Just said help him be more specific.
I heard that comment, so. Okay, and we're setting ourselves up for a mess if we do that.
Can we move on?
Item 10A, information items. Zak Eburne Stoodley, Music in the Park 2018, request for support. Recommendation is council receives for information the 2018 request for support for music in the park and forwards the request to the 2018 budgeting process. May I have a mover, please? Councillor Thompson, the seconder, Councillor Butler. Okay, information. Do we have it?
Zach's here, I
Yeah.
think she wanted to speak. Because we'd have to have unanimous vote.
Yeah, because that's normally, something like this is normally put out of committee of the whole.
Oh, he was here.
Or CAO.
Your worship, it's the same request came last year and you referred to the budgeting process, so it's just one of those typical requests that, when we have different events and that, and it shows up when you look at the budgeting for the events piece, and if council wishes that if the budget looks like it's too rich, then they can lean it back, and then we have to make decisions on what you're taking away, and so it's just one of those pieces that
Okay, so it's a receipt for information, so,
And referral to the budget.
yeah, exactly. So all those in favor?
Oh, I could maybe get some discussion.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, the meeting's dragging on. There were a couple of things that I had heard about from last year, and I don't mean to be nitpicky in any way. I really believe in music in the park. It's a fantastic event. A lot of people, as they're driving by or walking by, will come out and sit down and do that. But there's a cost in here, $100 for each event to pay the act, and then $50 for each event to be given for the provision of a sound system. And I understood from some people who were there doing that either they brought their own sound system and that they did not have any help with setup or anything like that. So I mean, I still think it's probably good value for money, but if there isn't a service being provided and we're being asked for that in the bill, maybe there's a better way of accounting for that.
Councillor Thompson.
Well, looking at that, it appears that they have 9 events, and their budget is saying that for half of them, someone else other than the entertainer is providing the sound system. So
450 divided by 9 is 50.
Yeah,
No,
but if it's not provided,
Council, we are just receiving for information
that's
and
good.
forwarding
And
the request
referring
to the budgeting process, so I don't think we need to have a long discussion on this subject matter with all due respect. All those in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. Item 10B, Citizens for Safe Technology, correspondence regarding the microcell resolution and notice of wireless harm. Recommendation is council receives for information the correspondence from Citizens for Safe Technology regarding microcells and wireless harm. Mover, please. Councillor Ross, seconder. Councillor Tripp. All those in favor?
Discussion?
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Yeah, this group, Citizens for Safe Technology, has been obviously aware that our council put forward the microcell placement consultation resolution, and that is going forward now to the federal government and also the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. They are, by way of this information, they are letting councils know that there is a right and responsibility and possible legal liability for councils in terms of putting up those microcells when it comes to RF radiation and the harm that they may potentially cause. There are a growing number of lawsuits in the United States, in various states, against Senate bills that are being proposed in various states that are really stripping municipalities of the right to be able to even say where these microcells go. Literally hundreds.
What about Canada? Let's deal with Canada.
Okay, well, because as the U.S. goes, Canada usually goes. And so what they're suggesting here in Section 5 of the information that they've given us, that municipalities have rights and responsibilities. And what I would like to suggest is for our city staff to actually take a look at that action checklist and implement whatever of that checklist is not being implemented at this point. I think that is judicious and wise and putting us ahead of the curve for things that definitely will be coming out down the road.
I have a question, Councillor Tripp. What other municipalities have they made presentations or correspondence to? And what is the success rate so far? What do they have as data to show any kind of proof of anything?
Proof of wireless harm?
Their claim, yeah.
Well, you can look at the studies that they've quoted here. There's thousands and thousands of studies. There's hundreds of scientists that have been asking for a moratorium on the rollout of this 5G technology. It's a brand new technology, and a lot of people don't understand what it's going to do, how it's going to be rolled out, what the uses of it are, and the extent of the radiation that it's going to put into the environment. So if you read through the material here, they did reference a number of different studies and scientists' recommendations throughout the world and also in Canada. So this will be coming, there's no doubt, and especially as our resolution is going forward in terms of asking for consultation for microcell placement with the public and also with municipalities. It's not that we're saying that the technology is bad or that we don't want it, it's just saying that people would like to have a say of where the microcells are placed.
With all due respect, the approach of studies is nothing affirmative yet. It's results that we need and the data that compiled with it, not the studies alone, because there's a lot of studies being done out there and then the studies have been dropped off because there's just no end that rewards the means. So that's what I'm looking for. What's the data and what's the outcome so far? Has there been any data put forward of any results positive in that area to show, to justify such an approach?
Well, there have, if I may respond to that, there have been cases around the world where people actually have been awarded through the courts compensation for harm that has been caused by wireless radiation.
Yeah, but is it
So
directly
that
affiliated with that?
puts us, that does put a municipality and councillors at potential risk because there is a precedent already set in case law. So that's why they're doing this, because they do have, and if we read through that, we would see that they have pointed to some of those cases.
In Canada?
It doesn't matter.
Oh, it does matter.
No, for case law, if it's within a Commonwealth country, it sets precedent for Canada.
Yeah.
And the United States as well.
And it's only a matter of time before it does make its way through the courts. If it's happened, in one place, then, they're going to look at that as a precedent.
Yeah, but you
and
have a
then
lot of
move it into case
organizations.
law.
In this case, you've got the CRTC, you've got a lot of organizations that have to look at this first and even acknowledge the fact that even if there is a case law, they have to acknowledge the fact that there is a precedent here and that it does actually cause harm. And that could take
it has been
that could
deemed
take
as
decades.
a potential carcinogen. It is absolutely by the World Health Organization. They've deemed wireless radiation as a
But it
potential
can
carcinogen.
take decades, just like cigarettes. It took decades.
Yeah, well, again, do we want to be proactive or reactive? Do we want to be at the front of the bus or at the end of the bus?
Or-
And if we know something, then I think it's incumbent upon us to act on it as
True.
well as we can.
But acting on it and being on the forefront and leaders in it and to a degree, but
Which our
the other
resolution
approach
has
of
done.
fear mongering, there's two differences.
I don't think it's fear mongering
Well-
in our comment.
In any event, Councillor Butler, we're just receiving this in
No.
any event.
You know what, this is marginalizing people that have a very serious condition. Some people are much more sensitive to Wi-Fi radiation and react to it. We had one of our councillors say to us over lunch today that the smell of perfume in this room was making it extremely hard to concentrate, that she had a headache from it, and would appreciate that this council chamber be a scent-free zone. I'm not sensitive to perfume, it doesn't bother me, but I am sensitive to Wi-Fi, and after sitting in here all day, I feel exactly the same way as that councillor with the perfume. And to be marginalized because my condition might not be is valid because you don't think that there's scientific proof when there are thousands of studies proving it, and there are many people that are sensitive to this radiation, to just ask for consultation before putting up a tower across the street from someone's house, I don't think it's too much to ask when there's many people that don't have a problem with it. So for our council to just put measures in place to help people that are sensitive in these situations, I don't think is prohibitive to the telecommunications companies. It's not impacting our infrastructure in any way. It's not costing us anything. I don't see the harm in doing it.
That's your belief, Councillor Butler, but at the same token, I think it's the higher levels of government that need to act first, just like in many issues in this country where the municipalities play a very small role, and very seldom do we become the leaders in anything. Councillor Tripp, and I'm going to close this now because we're going overboard on this.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Conrad. Just as a final comment, this municipal rights and responsibilities action checklist, probably our city has implemented a number of these already, and I don't know, in fact, what the agreements might have set out. But I just don't think that it would be really that onerous to have the staff go through this and just see what is in place and what isn't in place, and then put those things that aren't into place, just as a safeguard. And so, I mean, I would actually like to make that as a resolution, that we would instruct council to take on this action checklist and implement it. So I'm putting that forward as a resolution right now.
Notice of motion.
Oh,
You have to put a notice of motion, Councillor Tripp. You can't
So
make a notice of motion now.
We already have a motion on the table, so
Yeah.
we have to vote on
You
that.
have to vote on that, and then you
Okay.
have to make a notice of motion. Just a recommendation to staff that I think on a subject this premature, at this point in time, staff time would be much better suited on other issues right now, because we are loaded right now with the activities that are going on in Grand Forks. I think we are a little... In any event, all those in favor to receive? Anyone opposed? So carried. But if you'd like to make that notice of motion, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad, I will.
What is the motion that you're proposing?
Oh, so I can do that right now?
Normally, it should be a committee of the whole, I believe it.
No.
Your worship, it's kind of the indulgence of council if they are okay with Council Tripp and discussing it. I could also mention too that this checklist here, that there are possible agreements that are in place already that pretty much almost creates a redundancy.
Exactly, we're committed.
Cases.
Yeah. We've made a commitment to a large organization, and I think we would be looking very foolhardy in something like this forward, but I would vote against it personally.
Well,
No signatures on it.
Can we, I don't have an issue if Councillor Butler Tripp wants to bring this forward tonight. Otherwise, we're just delaying and deferring and
So we
stalling.
can bring forward tonight. We
No,
need a
put
notice of
forward a
motion.
notice of motion. Under Robert's Rules of Order, there's no problem with putting forward a notice of motion at this regular meeting.
Well, I'm just thinking that we did deal with another issue earlier in the meeting
Without a notice.
without a notice of motion.
Absolutely, we do it all the time.
But it has nothing to do with Robert's rules. I mean, it's our rules. We made those rules.
And I would just assume have Councillor Tripp put the motion on the floor, and we can vote on it tonight, and it's dealt with.
All right.
Then you know
That's
where
the
you're-
indulgence of council, go ahead.
Okay, well, thank you. So then I'd like to put forward,
Just one more thing. I would actually prefer the time to have a notice of motion and be able to take the time to research what she's proposing here. I haven't had a chance to actually consider and to do the research to
Then
see.
you have the option to vote against the notice of motion, or the motion itself.
That's why I'm saying I would recommend just putting forward a notice of motion tonight, so it gives council a chance to look into the issue and to collect the data and do the research.
well, obviously, I want to do what is going to be most favorable in order to get my goal achieved.
Okay, no guarantees.
Which is to have the city implement the action checklist. I do understand that there may be some redundancy here, but for those few things that may not yet have been picked up, I think that it would be wise for the city to do that. As we read through that, we're probably aware that a number of those things we already do have in existence. So if I could put forward a notice of motion, it would be that the city implement the action checklist as listed in the document that was given us from Citizens for Safe Technology under Section 5, microcells, municipal rights and responsibilities.
So you had stated if you could put forward, are you putting forward a notice of motion or a motion?
I'll put forward that notice of motion.
Okay, I need a second. Mr. Butler, all in favor of the notice of motion?
Do we have?
You don't have to vote either. We don't need a motion for a notice of motion.
No, she's just providing us with the fact that she is going to.
You don't vote.
I think everybody's.
But I was indulging you if you wanted.
A long day.
That's why I would have preferred the motion.
No, I'm not going to check at things that I don't know.
Okay, moving on. We received, now we're down to bylaws. 11A, bylaw 2041-2018, revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw. From our chief financial officer, the recommendation is, I apologize, my computer is not working. The council gives final reading bylaw 2041-2018, revenue anticipation borrowing bylaw. Mover, please, Councillor Thompson. Seconder, Councillor Butler. Any discussion? All in favor? Anyone opposed? So carried. We have no late items, so we move on to questions from the public and the media. Again, same routine. Stick with the agenda, please. Lady in the front row.
It's on this one.
Councillor Tripp, can you turn your mic off, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Your Worship. To you, I think. So the news that there may be a permanent shelter in Grand Forks is quite big. Can I get the resolution read back again, please?
Sure, absolutely. Okay, resolve the council directs staff to commence the process and options in support of the Beth's full-time shelter / hub initiative contingent on their receiving funding, opportunities applied and approved by BC Housing.
You just give it to her.
If you can have it if you want.
Yeah, I'll get that.
So there'll be no word.
Yeah. So the key thing I'm picking out there is in support of. So what may the city's support look like in this case?
The actual proposal and the news press release will be coming out by the BEST organization.
Okay.
We are not going to be commenting. It's so-called their brainchild and their baby, so they're going to give all the details on how it plays out.
Mm-hmm.
We are just giving support because support is contingent on the fact if they do not get the support of the city, the initial support, they will not get the funding in the grant.
Okay,
So this is the key first step is approval of the process.
Okay. Then if I may, just a question. Other letters of support have been requested from council in a public forum, most notably the Boundary Women's Coalition requested support publicly. Why was this support requested during the chamber meeting?
Because the details we were not in a preparedness for any of the details to be released. So it was at our request of council to ask the organization, are they prepared that we could release this out of in camera? And at the same token, it is at their discretion now when they want to release the rest of the details of the actual project. To our conceal.
And Your Worship, it fell under section 90 of the piece.
Yeah.
Just gonna check if it's the section. I think it is.
I think it's 91A.
No, E.
It would be-
E, sorry, yes, E.
So it's precisely what I thought it is. Which is 91E is the acquisition, disposition, or expropriation of land or improvements. So is the city looking at giving, donating, or selling land to this project?
Yes.
That is not in the resolution at this point in time.
No. But that would be the reason why it was in.
Possibly. I can't answer that question to you. That's why it's in camera. The section that was released out of in camera is what you're reading, and that's all you're reading, and that's all you're getting.
Okay, thank you.
And
Right.
Your Worship, The report will be coming out publicly
Yeah.
soon enough, where it'll outline the details
Yeah.
of what he asked me.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because we don't want to
We want
rain
it
on
to
their
look
parade.
bright.
It's not in our position to be discussing their business, and it is their business. So, fortunately, that's all we
So
can
this
give
month
you.
we'll expect more details from Bess in
Yeah.
Yeah,
future.
exactly.
Thank you.
They possibly might even be giving you a press release tomorrow, who knows?
Well, that'd be exciting.
Yeah.
Not time for publishing.
No, this is the time for publishing comments. The deadline back about 3 hours.
But it was a nice try to get the in-camera information.
Thank you. I did try.
Any other questions? To the lady in the second row. Yourself.
Oh, me? I just wanted to
You can identify
comment.
yourself for the record, please.
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry. Hi, my name's Dara, and I'm speaking in reference to one of the comments that were made earlier by Councillor Hammond about the community meeting. Just to clarify the purpose of that meeting, that purpose of that meeting was strictly to discuss housing for everyone. That was the sole purpose of the meeting. What did happen in that meeting was a lot of disclosure about feeling victimized and crime, etc., that we were in no way, shape, or form prepared for. And so, so the discussion that was had afterward was that something of that nature would be past our purview and would need actual trained counselors, et cetera, available to deal with the folks that were experiencing trauma as a result of those things. So that, just to clarify, so the ongoing meetings are every Friday, first Friday of the month, and it's strictly to talk about how, as a community, all the little things that we can do to support housing in our community. That's it. That's the whole thing. Just to clarify.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We had the lady in the
I just want to respond to that.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, when we were there, Stephanie did say that there was no agenda. It was a community meeting and it was open to any discussion. And when we came in, it was citizens on patrol discussing and talking about their role in the community and what they do and looking for volunteers. And then it evolved into other community concerns.
Yes.
At no point was I under the impression that it was strictly a housing meeting, because it did encompass everything. Housing came in sort of like in the last half hour of this 2-hour, 3-hour meeting. So, and when she explained that it was going to be the first Friday of every month, it was, I thought, a community meeting to discuss community concerns.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so even on Facebook, it's not outlined correctly.
Yeah.
Because it was just an open topic.
Yeah, so to speak to that, what formulated that meeting was conversations in all of the different media groups on Facebook where folks were like, I hate the homeless, and those things were happening. And then what happened was I was conversing with folks and saying, hey, let's go for coffee and we can talk about, the reality and the truth, and let's talk about that. And then I ended up having about 25 coffee dates that were just not going to be possible in this year. And so the community then responded, specifically Tammy Battersby was like, hey, I have a venue, why don't you just all have coffee together at the same time? And that was how the whole thing actually started. So the intent of the meeting, it was about, and because it was supposed to be informal, and it got really big really fast, and we weren't ready because that wasn't the intent. So yes, no agenda, nobody in the lead, it was just a conversation. And so what evolved from that was the realization that perhaps a town meeting or something that was actually facilitated with folks who were prepared and had agendas and to talk about the concerns that citizens clearly have might be something that is way past our purview and the intent of the meeting. So yeah, that was basically, it was quite the experience, hey, that second meeting, which went way beyond the intent and our expectations. It just so happened that folks felt comfortable to share, which is great. It's just we weren't prepared to support them. That's all.
Kate, did you have another? And then the gentleman in the third row.
Thank you. To you again, Your Worship, please. Can I get an update on the current status of the task force on the homelessness issue?
The latest status is now I'm going to be working in conjunction with MLA Larson, gather some of the stakeholders in this task force, and like I stated to some of the councillors by my own admission, it has dragged on a little too long, but unfortunately there have been a lot of issues going on in the city. Other than, and I'm not deeming this as a non-importance issue, it is very important, as I had stated earlier, not only for ourselves, but for many other communities, and I still believe that by us doing this, we may be the forerunners and let's say the people that will show the example to other communities, and maybe we'll get more input also from them.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, this third row.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Stan Haluk, and I'm the next door neighbor to Lauren Hood with that
Yes.
mess that you saw there. Just three items. I live in the trailer next to him that's off the ground by about 2.5 feet, so my height looking into his yard is about 8 or 9 feet high, so he'd have to build one hell of a high fence to cut me off from that mess that he started in there. The second item is I think he is getting the misimpression that if he hides this stuff from the public on Kettle River Drive and 10th Street and the lane, that whatever he has in there is fine. It doesn't matter what it is, and I think that that's not...
No, we get it, Mr. Hallock. It's not an issue of trying to hide or cover up something. The bylaw reads quite definitively clear. Debris on a property has to be removed. It's not by camouflaging it or hiding.
I understand that, but I don't think Mr. Hood does. The last one is, Mr. Hood didn't mention that he doesn't work daytimes. He starts working at 4 or 5 o'clock at night, and he works right till midnight. And I've talked to Mr. Bruce. Mr. Bruce will talk to him about noise bylaws. And I've talked to him lots of times. I've gone out and talked to him, and I said, for God's sakes, Lauren, why can't you get this stuff done in the morning? I don't see you until about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And when I want to settle down and take it easy, watch TV, relax after supper, he's out there hammering and pounding and with floodlights. He didn't mention that. And it's no wonder he's got the neighbors upset at him.
What time did you say?
Before it got dark, he was sometimes up till midnight working on this stuff
You
with
said
floodlights.
4 o'clock in the afternoon?
No, he starts at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, but
right.
there's no bylaw that states he can't work at those times. The cutoff, I believe, is 11 o'clock at night.
There isn't, but the bylaw says that you shall not make any unnecessary noise that disturbs the peace and quiet of your neighbor. And I don't care how much pounding and stuff he wants to do. You do it from 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning to 5 o'clock at night, like normal people do. But he does not do that, Mr. Mayor. He does that in the evening, and he's gotten a lot of...
With all due respect, the terminology you just used, like normal people do, that's not the way of saying it, because...
He won't change. He will not. And he has other neighbors across the lane and up the lane also very upset at him.
Well, that's another issue, but the debris and the unsightly premises, the timelines of when he works is, I believe, from 7 a.m. in the morning till 11 p.m. at night, unless I am totally wrong. And our manager of bylaws can explain that to me if I'm wrong, then I will retract that.
Mr. Mayor, I might add, Mr. Illick is not incorrect in that the body of the bylaw does say any noise which disturbs the peace, quiet, irrespective of time, is considered contrary to the bylaw. However, council adopted policy is that the only noise bylaw infractions that we will be dealing with are those noise bylaw infractions which come outside a specified period of time. The bylaw is very general. However, our enforcement techniques are very limited to a window of time.
Exactly, because if someone works during the day and they have to achieve and accomplish their workload at home and they come home in the afternoon.
But he doesn't work during the day.
That's irrelevant. That's not something that we take into consideration. But the bottom line is, if he's within the parameters of the time and hours that he's allowed to work, but it's a very tough one to enforce.
So as Mr. Bruce has said, section 4.2 of the noise bylaw is straightforward. It says, you shall not disturb the peace and quiet and enjoyment of your neighbor's property. And it doesn't give a timeline, it doesn't say anything, it's very explicit. All I've asked Lauren to do is, for God's sakes, you make all the racket and noise you want in this thing from 8 in the morning to 5 at night. Give us a break in the evening. And he won't do it. He won't do it. I've called the Mounties out twice for him, and he's making a lot of allegations here that are not right. It's on the record. I've called the Mounties out twice on him, and he's on report at the Mounties 2 more times for harassment, intimidation, and noise. He's strange, I'm telling you, but this is just to set the matter straight with the council. And I thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. To the lady in the third or fourth row. Yeah, yourself.
Yeah, I'm Mary Lotard. I live on Riverside Drive. I'm not the other end. I just want to say that I did attend the meeting on November the 3rd, and I stayed the whole meeting. And what I left with was, because I knew people who were there, the anger and the feeling of resentment by the victims. And I just want to endorse the idea of a meeting that will address the victims, how to protect themselves, and what the RCMP are able to do. And when you get the victims validated, I think then you will get them on board for all the other things. But right now they feel alienated. I know you've had angry people here at the meetings. When they are validated, I think you will be able to implement all the other things, the really hopeful, optimistic things that you're working at. Thank you.
Councilor Ross, and then the lady.
I believe that council is somewhat responsible for the safety and well-being of the people who live here. That's why we put up streetlights, and just because people feel safer with streetlights. And I would think that it's something that maybe, the mayor may not agree, but perhaps putting a panel together one evening and just building a safe and secure community, and just call it that, building a safe and secure community, with people who can speak to initiatives, what we can do, not necessarily a platform for people to be angry, but for people to be proactive and come together in neighborhoods, in clusters, so that we can feel like we are a safe and secure community and that we look out for one another. So I think it would be a positive initiative. We have open houses where we talk about infrastructure. Let's have an open house in terms of a little panel, town hall meeting, maybe in the school gym or at the gym theater, where people can come and we can talk about how we build a safe and secure community.
On that note, Councillor Ross, I think that's going to be partially already achieved, so to speak, with the consultant's report that we will be getting to show us exactly how safe and secure our community is and what approaches need to be taken to make it more so. Mr. Bruce can elaborate more on that if you will.
Certainly, Mr. Mayor. I'm not so sure he's going to go into that kind of detail.
Not that detail, but
as opposed to the block by block characteristics of the sequence in this municipality. I do hope to get that report soon.
But he will give a generalized overview, because that is his professional approach towards a community, to see where and what, like you had mentioned, that the lighting possibly, or,
Well, and certainly surveillance and
exactly.
and everything, Mr. Mayor, but I think what Councillor Tripp is referring to is probably a bit more of a broader, from the west side to the east side to the north side to the south side.
But it'll be a starting point, which will give us maybe a bit of insight of exactly where possibly the community or the downtown core at least is going, possibly, I'm assuming, going wrong, let's say.
We sure hope so.
Yeah, exactly. Councillor Tripp, and then Kate.
There's a
Oh,
lady
sorry.
behind.
Lady in the second row is next. Councillor Tripp, you got it.
And there's one behind, you can't see her, behind the,
Oh, another one. Okay, so go ahead, ma'am, and then Kate second.
I'm Roma. I wasn't at the meeting that Chris Hammett was mentioning, but I just wanted to underline the lady in the back, this lady here's point. I am in contact with someone that's very much on the victim side and really feels unheard. So I just wanted to speak up. There are members in this community that would really appreciate a forum for those who are suffering, who are on the victim side. The opinion that has been given to me about the meeting that Chris went to and the other councillors was that it was more predominantly on the helping of the situation rather than the victim side being able to express themselves. And if you're not if you're in a meeting and you're in the minority, it's difficult to speak out. So I would just put my word in the kitty that I think there are members in the community that would really appreciate some form of town hall meeting. And maybe you'd have the RCMP there to answer some questions. Anyway, back to you.
Oh, I'm sorry, I never turned that on. And I know that we talked about that when I had my report, when I was giving my report, but I don't think Mr. Smith was in the room at that point. I was looking around for you.
Oh, yeah.
And he's here now. So I'm just wondering if you would be willing to speak to, basically what I'd said was that my report outlined fairly extensively what happened at the meeting on November the 3rd, and then the information and requests that I had in speaking with people from the community who were interested in a town hall, and then how we connected.
Yeah, so anyway, I did connect with both Councillor Thompson and Councillor Tripp. I'm Gary Smith, President of the Phoenix Foundation, and over the last couple of years I've held a number of community conversations as a professionally trained facilitator in the art of hosting, and was willing to offer either myself as an individual outside of the Phoenix Foundation or as a sanctioned member of the Phoenix Foundation to host something, because we have, actually I'll just read a paragraph from an email that essentially says it all. I made the suggestion that I could facilitate this under the banner of the Phoenix Foundation by way of the Vital Signs report, which has security as one of its 11 indicators. The intentions would be to elevate the specific issue to a crime to a greater one of general security, to facilitate, not lead, a respectful conversation between all the parties using facts and reasoned thinking, to avoid the shooting gallery approach where public fire questions and lob demands at the people behind the big table, and to work together at meaningful approaches to ameliorate our sense of safety and security. That's the offer. So I've got lots of experience, we're professionally trained, and I'm sure we can work something out where it's not you guys, like I say, at the shooting gallery, because it goes bad quickly. So,
Councillor Thompson?
Yes, and I believe, and I did advise earlier before you got here when Councillor Tripp's report was being discussed, is that that's going to be a decision of the board of the Phoenix Foundation, which will be meeting tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lady in the third or fourth row.
Yeah. My name's Laurie. I grew up in this community. I got married in this community. I raised my children in this community. And it breaks my heart to see it broken in half. I was at that meeting. I've been reading social media stuff. This is not acceptable. This is not acceptable. We've got people on the street, we've got people in here, and what really bothers me is I feel obligated to. No, I want to support you as City Council. But we're not getting any communication from City Council. I mean, it was great to have the council members at that community meeting. That was really good. That was a positive thing. But they didn't come in the office that they're representing or that they stand in. They came as citizens.
No, I said I came as both.
As both?
Yeah.
Okay. But there was no communication as to what city council is doing. So I encourage you, strongly encourage you to communicate to your people. You're representing us. You're looking out for our best. Let's do it. Let's do it. I really appreciate your offer. I hope they take you up on it, and that you're either as a private citizen or as, through the Phoenix Foundation. We need something, and we need it very quickly. I mean, I know Housing First is a process, which you have indicated is a process, and that's going to take time. But you need something very quickly to put people's hearts at ease, to people's minds at ease, that they feel safe and comfortable in their community. Because, I mean, the latest thing, people want to take people out of that city, tent city, and shoot them. I mean, yes, they're just speaking those words. That's just, but how long is it just going to be speaking those words? Yeah, how long is that going to be? And, I mean, this is the town I grew up in. My grandkids are growing up in this town. This happened over such a short period of time, and I know it's been a process. I know this isn't just happened. But we need to do something very quickly. So I strongly urge you as City Council to make a decision to have a town hall meeting, to have some kind of a meeting, be vulnerable, give what you have, so people know that you're working towards something. Thank you.
And if may I just comment on that quickly, Mayor Conroy, because there are a number of things that the city is doing. And our CAO sent us an email out last week listing, just the number of things that are being that they're doing. And I really see those as talking points that the community should have, because it is going to give them that security, that sense of security, that this isn't just something that we're shoving under the carpet, that it is something that very pointed action steps are being taken in certain areas.
We need to, like as citizens, we need to know that. Yeah. We need to know that something is being done.
Councillor Buck.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the gallery, I just really appreciate people coming out tonight and speaking your opinions on this matter. I know Councillor Tripp and I had many discussions via email and on the phone about the city taking the lead in this, that we are the leaders in this community, and to shun our responsibility and to pass the buck is not acceptable. We have a serious issue that needs to be dealt with quickly, and we need to be strong enough and stand up and take responsibility for that meeting. I appreciate Mr. Smith coming forward, but I think it's unfortunate that this council isn't stepping up and taking responsibility for that meeting.
Well, I think I just said we should do it.
That wasn't the emails going back and forth, and that's great. I'm glad that maybe people are hearing the voice of the community, wanting to move forward on this, and perhaps we can put a motion forward to get moving on this.
I'm hearing what's being said here. My concern is, what is the agenda going to be? And is the city, you're saying that the city sets the agenda?
Absolutely. When we host the meeting, we hold that power. When we give it to somebody else, we lose that.
Okay, but are we the right group to be hosting or holding that meeting?
Hey, we're heading on the task force.
Would it be better, and I know that you went to big today, the meeting, would a group like that that's got people there that can respond?
How are you not the leader? You're our city council.
I know. I hear what you're saying.
And your job is to protect us. That is part of your responsibility, is to protect
hear what
your
you're
people.
saying, Lori.
How are you doing that?
I think that we're doing it by wanting to get the proper people with the education, the background, the knowledge.
See how many people there are here? This is a very small percentage of the entire community.
I know that, and I read the Facebook too, and I know that there's vigilantism going on out there or being discussed, and that's a real concern. But I believe that we need an association that has the right people with the right skills and the right knowledge that can address the concerns that you have, and that Dara has, and that Tom Tripp has, and that Stan Halleck
I
has.
want to know what you're doing, because I voted for you. I want to know what you're doing.
I am working to try and get the appropriate people together to, I don't want city council sitting up at a town hall where people are just, I want to have the right people with the skills and the knowledge and the ability to address all of the concerns that are going to be potentially be brought out.
To get them all addressed, it's not going to happen. I'll tell you that right now.
If I may just comment on this, we are
I
not,
appreciate that.
we cannot be sitting as targets on the firing line by the city when we do not have the expertise to answer the questions that will properly be addressed at us. This is the main thing that Dara has said that also. We have to have professionals at that table to be able, we are basically council. Yes, we represent you. Yes, we protect you. But our main role, again, unfortunately, is water, roads and sewers. But the main thing is when it comes to this element of mental health, whatever issues you want to talk, addictions, we are not qualified. And for us to make statements back to the public, we could very gravely misinform you by giving you comments and replies that are not pertinent to the questions you're asking and the responses you want to hear. So you are asking non-professionals, because you elected us, to give you answers which we are not able to. Do you understand what I'm saying now?
You're telling me that you're doing nothing because you don't know what to do.
That is your opinion, ma'am, your perception.
No, it's not. I just asked
No, I've just explained to you factual data of why, but you do not wish to listen to that. So
you didn't hear what I asked.
I heard what you asked. You said that you elected us and we're here to protect you, and I have just explained to you that is not within our wheelhouse or our parameters to be able to do that. We are not professional. That would be like you trying to go to someone and ask him to cure you of an ailment that you have. If he is not a physician or a doctor or a specialist in that field, he cannot help you.
Okay, at the beginning of my spew, I asked for information. That's all I'm asking for.
No, you asked for a town hall meeting where we would be there to represent.
Where you would give us information as to what the city's doing in response to the problem that's in our community.
Why can't we discuss the meetings that you've had with the RCMP?
Yeah.
Right.
Mr. Mayor, the other issue that was put forward when we had emails back and forth was this town hall meeting was to collect everybody with the expertise like you're talking about. We proposed to have the RCMP, to have people from IHA, to have people from mental health, to have people that are working with the homeless, to have everybody at that table as a panel to be able to answer the public's questions. All this resident is asking is that we answer the questions within the scope of our powers. Things that have to do with the RCMP, they will be at the table to answer those questions. Just getting everybody at the table so that the people have the opportunity to hear from everybody involved in one room and get their questions answered brings the community together and helps to heal this divide that is formed, which is completely unhealthy and unnecessary.
And Mr. Mayor, if I might add, we do have, Mr. Smith has offered, and he's made it very clear that he would gather the appropriate resource people to the
And he has
table.
offered to hold the actual.
Mr. Smith just did that, but he said he has to run it through his board first.
And just to clarify, I mean, I can either do it as a member of the Phoenix Foundation or as an individual, because it's myself that's had the training and the experience. And I should just mention, I also had a conversation with the staff sergeant this morning, who said he would be interested in participating in such a meeting as long as it was properly structured and professionally.
He has reaffirmed that to me too when I had a meeting with him last Tuesday. So.
We could have an organizing committee, which
But it has to be well orchestrated, because otherwise that will probably be his only time, and he will not appear at another one because he is not there to get hammered, and he will not do that.
I'll supply an outline.
So could we somehow purpose to, if Mr. Smith gets whatever direction he needs from his foundation for if maybe Councillor Thompson wants to relay that information back to council or whatever, just so that we can get something moving towards this. Because the longer we leave it, the angrier people get and the
Well,
greater the divide becomes.
I think it's quite evident if Mr. Smith is able to do this through his board, then it'll be up to which councillors or whoever wants to attend. We don't have to orchestrate it if he's doing it.
I'm thinking there needs to be a meeting. Who's gonna host it, or who's gonna do whatever. But I would like to do it when our MLA is going to be here, because she also needs to hear, as our elected representative. It's one thing to say to city council, well, what are you gonna be doing to protect me? Our abilities are limited. We are the lowest level of government. We do have protective services. We don't pay for policing, so we don't even have the ability to go to the RCMP and say, this is what you have to do in our city. Rolly Russell and Grace McGregor, they pay for policing in their jurisdictions, and they do have that ability to give, I believe, some more concrete direction. But I think we need to have not just the city, and I think it has to be like the community as a whole, to do something, to have some sort of a meeting that's structured, and if Gary, he's got the training, whether it's going to be under the auspices of the Phoenix Foundation, or whether it's going to be under the auspices of BIG, or it's going to be under the auspices of another group that puts together some funding to do this. But let's get it going. And let's hold it, and what I would suggest is the best venue would be the auditorium at the high school.
Yeah.
But again, this will involve staff time if we host it, and this is the recommendation
I'm
again
not
that
saying
the
that the
staff,
city
that we
would
do
host
not
it.
host it, because otherwise other things in this organization will suffer, because we are maxed out as far as staff time.
I hear you, and
Maxed out.
I think the important thing is that our citizens need to be heard. And I don't want to take, what would Councillors Crosby, ownership. I don't want us to own the problem, to say that, well, it's in your city, you have to fix it. I think together, we all have to come together to fix it. And I think there are a number of issues that are causing this problem. There's mental health, there's addictions, there's working poor. And I'm not saying that collectively they are all a problem. What I'm saying is there are some within those components that are causing the problem. They're doing the thieving, they're doing the threatening. There's people with the machetes, I understand. There's all kinds of issues that are going on. We can't, as a council, resolve that. We can't solve that.
I have a 7-point, for instance, it's too lengthy and I won't go into it, but we have a 7-point list here comprised, and not just the tip of the iceberg, stating exactly so far what the city has done. As you had mentioned, that we're not doing anything. That is farthest from the truth, because there is so much going on. Unfortunately, you're not aware of it. For instance, we've proposed adjustments to our zoning and OCP bylaws in consideration of affordable housing options. We've had bylaws enforcement by engaging our bylaw enforcement officer on a more permanent position. We've taken bylaw initiatives. Myself, Director Russell, and Chair McGregor met with the RCMP. We've had council meeting with ministers at the UBCM to talk about it at the provincial level. Council has appointed a liaison with BIG and the Beths, which just happened today. So it's far from that we're not doing anything.
Can I respond to that?
Go ahead. Please.
I appreciate that. I know what you've been doing because I've been following the city council meetings. The community at large does not know because they're not following the city council meetings.
Then we need to improve our communication.
And so that information needs to get out there.
Yeah.
It needs to get out there.
We need more press releases. We need to be
Something. We need to do something.
Dara's had her hand up.
We've proposed over the last year and a half to 2 years, we've proposed many initiatives. I know myself, I think it was last year, there was a proposal, maybe it was about a year and a half ago, to have some, as we call them, pop-ups, where I would appear in different locations, give some informative information, what's happening. Community councilors would attend with me should they choose. That never happened either, for the same reason, because we are just bogged down.
But what I'm saying is you have an absolute desperate need in the community right now. You need to do something. You need to do something.
Yeah, we realize, and after speaking with MLA Larson yesterday, I spoke to her, we realize that there is a sense of anxiety in the community, but if it's any assurance, this community is not alone on this. There's other communities that share the same problems. We just seem ours more magnified because we live in it. But this is going on everywhere. This is not just in Grand Forks. We're not unique with the situations that we're encountering. And unfortunately, the way things are, our police force is doing the best they can under the circumstances.
And that's fair enough, but you need to communicate that to the public.
They need to communicate.
Yeah. You know, I won't get into the details and the parameters of the force, but...
and that's fair enough. Like I said, I know the different things you can do. I've been following the city council meetings when I haven't been able to attend. I understand what you're doing. And that's why I have no problems backing you as city council and saying, no, they're doing something. But when you've got 300 or 400 people at a meeting, yeah, there wasn't that many. It was like just over 65. It was a little scary. You know?
You must also admit the fact that if you look at Grand Forks now and you look at Grand Forks 8-10 years ago, did we have this situation?
6 months ago, I left at the beginning of June, and this crack broke open.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm going like, okay, this didn't just happen.
No, it was going on.
You know, it's been ongoing, yeah. But it's become very prominent, and now it's escalating. And I'm going like, come on, we got to do something. We got to communicate.
This is happening in this community with all the merchants. We have complaints coming at us. There's so much of it, and unfortunately, we're just overwhelmed and overpowered. And we have to find the solutions. I agree, but until such a time that we find the right solutions, we are not going to communicate anything with you because we have nothing to communicate you to. If you can understand that concept, we have to get the right.
But by not saying anything, you're saying we're doing nothing and we don't.
That's your perception.
Well, I think we do.
That's the community.
That's your perception. I think we communicate quite
I'm coming from the community.
We need to communicate. We do.
We need to be communicating.
I mean,
We can't respond to anything until we hear from
Exactly.
the people and know what the issues are.
no, but
My policy has always been, and I still believe that, sometimes less is more. Sometimes less is really more, because you know what? There's no point in saying something that you have no foundation or basis to, because in the end, it's gonna come back and bite you.
But you know, at least people being heard, people are being validated. Right now, they're not being heard. There's no place to go.
Really, relationships are broken when there's a breakdown in communication. No communication is not fostering a healthy relationship. If we want to foster healthy relationships within the city and between city, council, and our community, we need communication. To say we have nothing to communicate, that's not, I'm sorry, I disagree.
I
We have a
don't
lot to
say
communicate.
nothing, but I mean positive negative.
We have positive communication. So we just write a press
Name
release.
it.
We just
I'd like
write a
to
press
have-
release every week.
Dara, go ahead, please, you've been waiting for a while.
Yeah, oh, thank you. Sorry about the etiquette of trying to through the mayor. Thank you, the gallery. So just to support, everybody seems to be saying pretty much the same thing. So just to kind of pull it together, what we noticed in having our communication was there were people that with unmet needs, right? So we ended up doing, I think, a disservice to the people who felt victimized because we didn't have a platform ready of people who could answer their questions. We didn't have a platform ready to address what their experiences were. Like people left feeling victimized. Further, which was not the intention. And I can't speak to whoever else was in the room, but I think there were only 2 of us that are social workers. And running after and there were a lot of folks who left feeling hurt and vulnerable. And so the issue seems to be is about care and continuity within our community, which the meeting, and as you were saying too, was having the right people at the meeting, right? So the RCMP, etc., being able to answer the RCMP questions, having trauma therapists there who, like for instance, we have some folks that are trained that if we had them in the room, we could, in a very facilitated way, assist people so that they're not feeling more harmed by the conversation. So just to speak to that piece. So I think everybody's kind of saying the same thing. It's just a matter of how to implement that. And my caution is the sooner is better than later because of it's kind of reaching a fever pitch. People are threatening to burn things down. And that's a very real threat. People are feeling even worse. And this is a really great time in the other sense that people are feeling vulnerable to express how their legitimate feelings about their community. And so this is a beautiful time for all of you to really support the community in a really meaningful way. So it's actually a really great opportunity. It doesn't have to be scary. So we got Gary, who's not scary, and you've got the access to the expertise. It's just a matter of venue and timing and pulling it together. And a lot of it can be free.
December 5th.
Pick a date.
Yes.
Yeah, pick a date. Make sure, let's have a little committee. Who needs to be at that table doing the presentations? Who needs to be in that room?
Yeah.
We have Gary facilitating it. Date, like venue, date, time, right people sitting at that table. And it's not going to cost a lot of money, and the city endorses it.
Yeah.
And we're there as city councilors.
That's what I was asking.
And that's kind of basically,
And if you have it at the school, in the auditorium, maybe the school district would donate the venue.
So,
They should.
There's no harm in
So there
asking.
would be probably no cost.
So should we strike a little ad hoc town hall committee meeting organization meeting committee that meets in the next 2 days?
I think I would wait first for Gary Smith to find out if he runs it by the board.
He's
Well,
gonna
we'll
do it
we'll
anyway.
go either way.
He's going to do
It's
it.
just whether or not it's going to be supported by the Phoenix Foundation or not. So I think we should just go ahead and proceed with the committee, as you say, to get
Just
the
a
sort of
small
logistics around.
organizing committee.
Yeah, and with the venue, it's really important, I think, too, to remember that how to facilitate within a venue where people are safe is really important. So that might not actually be an ideal where it's in that stadium seating to be able to actually access the people in greatest need, because you go to where the greatest need is, right? To serve the people that are in the most distress. And when you're in an auditorium seating, it's very difficult to facilitate that.
Well, again, you have the audience in the firing line.
Yes,
So
and
it's just a bad-
adversarial.
That's a bad place.
So a fun committee,
Anyway, I could figure something, let's figure something out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, great.
All right, so now we got, are some people putting both hands up? Okay, the lady in the back.
Now, I just wanted to say that the whole feeling here is endorsement of this.
Yeah.
And I think that needs to be communicated as soon as possible to the community.
Gentleman in the back?
You're going to have a meeting. That's good. But it should be the beginning of a process. I mean, one meeting's not going to fix anything.
No.
So you should expect that. Okay. I've been watching council and helping bring council to the community for years, and I'll say both. I've said this before. Again, I'll say it again. Both sides fail at communicating. People don't pay attention to council, and they don't understand what council can't do, and what they are and aren't doing because they're not paying attention. But then again, on the same side of things, like you said, you're snowed under, you've got lots to work, and you don't have a big outreach, and you should have an outreach. Like if you have that meeting, you should expect to have more meetings, because when I make noodles at home, I boil that water, I throw the noodles in, and immediately everything goes crazy. If I put a little bit in, take out the big boil, and I can boil the rest of it. That's, in a sense, that first meeting you have everybody comes out and everybody's But you know, if you have a meeting every week or two, they won't be all like that. They'll get possibly some constructive things happening. That's just my 2 cents. Period. That's it. Oh, and I would, if you wanted to televise
Can you
that,
tape it for us, Les?
yeah, if you wanted to televise that, if you could come up with a venue, I could probably give you the time and the equipment to do it with. Right? I just don't want to be the one that's on the hook when somebody says they want to burn somebody's place down. So I don't want it to be on my shoulders.
Live television? I mean, live broadcast? Les?
Pardon?
You can live broadcast?
Yeah. I can live stream it, yeah. I just have to have a place where I could get the live stream out nicely, you know.
And informed consent of everybody present.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because people in our meetings shared really personal stuff that we weren't prepared for. Yeah.
And they probably wouldn't want that publicly aired.
Probably not, yeah.
Anyways.
Go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So before I do actually have a question for Councilor Tripp, but on the whole issue of the public being informed of these things, you know, speaking for the newspaper, you're always going to have people that are not going to inform themselves, whether the news comes from council or the newspaper, from the people themselves. You're always going to have that, is my perception of the issue. And so we hopefully, people are going to find what they want on social media, and they're always going to find that. So I would just say that despite everyone's efforts, there's always going to be some people who complain aloud.
Yeah.
But that was not my question. My question was, through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Tripp. You mentioned in your report that there was a non-profit group looking to get the ball rolling on a treatment center. What group is that?
Well, we had some conversations back a while back when Audrey Barak was the executive director for Whispers, and when we met with the ministers of the UBCM, I didn't know what their flavor might be for that, him having left and a new executive director having come on. I met with them after we came back and just told them just what had happened down there. And they were not really interested in picking that up. They I think, have very clearly specified that their mandate is more feeding and clothing the less fortunate of the community. So they didn't have a flavor to do that. So in exploration of that now, it would just be seeing whether or not there was another nonprofit group in the community, or one that may even be interested in forming, because there are a number of people who are very interested in seeing something like a treatment center here, which doesn't, it's in addition to the support services that are already being requested and going after the money that being gone after. So
who wants to be on the organizing committee?
I'm sure you do. She's done all this before. She used to organize things.
Well, I have too.
We don't need a lot of people.
no.
3 people would be fine. You know, if that's all we have. So we just email.
Yeah, I think one time, yeah.
Dara should be on. Should I just volunteer you? Yeah, Dara.
Oh, sweet Jiminy. Because you've got so much time on your hands.
Do we have any other questions or concerns from the gallery? From the meeting?
You're welcome.
If hearing none, have a motion to adjourn, please. Oh, Councilor Hammond. All those in favor? Meeting adjourned.